This might look like an advanced woodworking project to you, but I made the whole thing with basic tools and a quick trip to Home Depot. Most people think cutting angled legs or building a full bench is too complicated, but today I'll show you why this deceptively easy design is perfect for beginners. It's solid enough for 2 people to sit on, it looks great on just about any porch, and benches like this can even sell for $150 or more. In this video, I'm going to walk you through each step of the build, starting with the frame, then adding the legs and adding the top pieces. I'll show you how to make that angled back leg just using a simple tool, even if you've never done it before. Every material I use came straight from Home Depot, and the construction is solid enough to last for years. I'm using regular 2x4 construction grade lumber. This can interchangeably be made with cedar 2x4s, although your lumber costs will be about 3 times higher. So first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna build that frame. So I'm gonna need 2 pieces at 50 inches and then 3 pieces cut at 18 inches. First thing you do, always cut off the end an inch or 2 to get any cracks and start with a nice clean line. So I'm gonna mark and measure at 50 inches. And then we're gonna need 3 pieces at 18. So out of this board, I'm gonna measure at 18 and cut that. To make this frame, we're going to put these 18-inch pieces on the inside of the 50-inch pieces. They're gonna have one on each end and then one directly in the middle. I'm gonna get these screws started before I flip it up because it's easier to start the screws while the board is laying flat. And I'm using GRK cabinet washer screws. These actually they're treated lumber approved, so they can use them for outdoors. They have a nice finished look to them. Now you can use any other screw, but these, first of all, you need to make sure that they are okay for outdoor use, but also I like the GRK brand because I don't have to pre-drill them. So if you're using construction screws, you're probably gonna wanna pre-drill these so that your wood does not split. Now, I'm going to start 2 down each board here, and you want it to get in the middle of the stud that you're going into. So you're gonna be about 3/4 of an inch to 7/8 from the end there. You want to make sure that you're working on a nice flat work surface, make it much easier. And I'm going to put 1 screw in, flip it over, and then do the other side, and then flip it back and do the other screws, just in case there's not one board that's warped, throwing the whole frame off. Now, since this is a larger project, it's probably easier to stain it in sections rather than the one large bench all at the same time. So I'm gonna go ahead and get a coat of stain on this, and I'm also going to cut out the rest of the top pieces. Next, we need to cut the back legs, the front legs, and the armrest. So the back legs, you need 2 of those cut at 40 inches. The front legs will be 2 pieces at 28.5 inches. And then for the armrest, we want 2 pieces at 23 inches. To cut the angle on the legs, we're going to mark from the top down at 20 inches. I'm gonna make my line all the way straight across. Now, from the corner along the end here, you're gonna mark 1 inch. That's gonna be at the very top there. And that is the part, this 1 inch, that we're going to keep. We're gonna leave that. And this over here is actually what we're gonna cut off. So from that 1 inch point, that 1 inch mark, take a square or a straight edge and line it up on that mark. And then also put it where the 20-inch line is as well. We're going to draw a diagonal line on the board. Same thing for the other one, from your 1 inch mark down to that 20-inch line. So I always like to make a mark on the discard when I'm gonna get rid of. We're gonna use a jigsaw to cut this. And you could probably also use a scroll saw or a bandsaw. I find it easier to clamp my workpiece to the table for just better control. So I'm going to use a jigsaw. I have a clean wood blade in here, and I'm going to be running just on the outside of the line on the discard side so that I can see my line as I'm going through here. Now we have these two legs cut. Now we're gonna notch out the back leg on these armrests. But first, I recommend notching out the end of the armrest just to give it a nicer look. In order to do this, super easy. Just turn your miter saw, the base to 45 degrees, and then just cut off those corners. Now we're going to mark and measure where we're going to notch these out. And you want to make sure these are opposing. So if you're trying to hide a side, make sure that you do it on opposite sides. But what we're going to do, let's mark and measure 2 1/4 inches down from the end. So 2 1/4, and then 1 1/2 inches in. 2 1/4, 1 1/2. I'm going to draw those lines with my square. So we have made these lines, and those little squares that we just made, that's going to be our discard. That's what we're cutting out. Now, since the back leg is at a bit of an angle, I'm actually going to turn my jigsaw at an angle. I'm going to bevel the jigsaw to cut this at a matching angle. And to envision it, if you need to, the bench, this is the front, this is the back, this is going to need to be at an angle going that way. And no, that angle isn't accurate. I'm just kind of giving myself an idea of where to turn that. So, make sure that's locked. I'm going to bevel the jigsaw to loosen that. Is that right? Yeah, it goes that way for this one. Okay. So you see my jigsaw, this is the plate, it's now at a bevel, and I'm going to cut from here up until I hit that line right there. I'm gonna turn the bevel the opposite way for the opposite side. I'm gonna make sure I have it the right way. I'm gonna put it back to 0, and then I'm gonna cut that line from the end. It's just a regular straight line, and I'm gonna cut till I reach my other line there. Need a little bit of trimming up to do. I'm gonna hit that real quick here. When you get to that line, you gotta really slow down because you really don't want to go over that. There's just a little piece in there I need to clean up. Now, while I have these pieces on my table here, I'm going to sand them. Now, when I sand construction 2x4s, I just like to use 80 grit. Just goes a lot faster for me, but you could also use 100 or 120. But when I'm sanding, I just want to get the really rough stuff off. It's not going to be perfect. When you're working with construction lumber, it's different than working with, if it's a fine woodworking project. So this not going to take that long. I'm using this Bare waterproofing wood finish. It's semi-transparent. It's in the color Cedar Natural Tone. And I'm going to put a coat on everything that I've cut so far. So the frame, the legs, and also the top pieces, which I cut out and sanded as well. There are, for the top pieces, there's 3 pieces at 53 inches and 6 pieces at 50 inches. When making a large project like this, it is easier to kind of stain things in sections rather than one large thing. And something else, because this is going to be outside, that you really want to make sure that this lumber has a good coat on it. So what I'm actually going to do is get a coat of this sealant on separately, Then I will let it dry. Then I will assemble it. And then I will actually add a second coat on once it is all assembled, and really just making sure I get those spots again. But this is recommended to have 2 thin coats is the recommendation. So that is what I will follow. Now we are ready to start assembling it. I have my 2 back legs, and we're going to mark and measure where it's going to be attached to this frame. So from the bottom of the leg, make a little mark at 14 inches. This is where the bottom of the frame is going to be on there. And then make another little mark at 17 and a half. So you have 14, 17 and a half, and in between here, that's where the frame is going to sit. So this is important to be using a flat level surface again, so that we make sure that these, that the legs are square to the frame, that these are at a 90. We'll go ahead and I'm going to fasten this with 2 screws. And I like to start this laying down. Then we're going to repeat that on the other side. The front legs will also need to be marked and measured at 14 and then 17 and a half, and that's where the frame is going to sit there. I'm going to add 2 support pieces under the frame that are going to connect the legs. The reason I'm doing this is just to add extra support for this. It's optional, but I mean, it's easy to add this. You can cut yours at 21 inches, but I cut mine at 20 inches. And the reason is the front, I'm going to have an inch of space there so that this end grain isn't just visible from the front. So just kind of a aesthetic thing. Next, we're going to put the backrests on, which are our 3 53-inch long boards. So the top one is going to be lined up flush with the edge or the end of the top there. So I'm going to get 1 screw started. Still using my 2.5-inch long screws. Don't get too close to the top there because there's not enough thickness since we cut out that board. I'm going to do 1 on the other side, make sure I'm centered. Then you're going to get your armrest, and we're going to start getting those assembled. Remember that groove is at an angle, so they can only go on one side. Don't get those mixed up. And the angle just kind of creates a, helps this joint kind of meet, just makes it a little bit better. But what we're gonna do, you need this armrest to lay flat on that front leg. I'm gonna get a screw started in here. So I'm gonna put a screw in at 2 3/4 and 4 1/4, and it will be 3/8 or 3/4 inches in. So that I'm gonna hit this 2x4 just in the center, directly in the center there. You need to make sure that this is flush with this board here. There's no overhang. On this back leg from the bottom up, I'm gonna mark and measure at 28 and a half, which is the same length as this front leg, just so I have a mark to know where the back of this armrest needs to sit exactly. So 28 and a half. Our second backrest is gonna go right above the armrest, and we're actually going to attach, we're gonna attach the board to the leg, and the armrest, we're gonna put a screw up through the bottom to attach to that. You don't wanna go sideways in a 2x4. It has a tendency to split, so it can be a little risky doing that, which is why I am not doing it that way. Now I'm gonna put the second backrest piece here, 53-inch long piece. There's going to be a gap between this top board and the second one of 3 1/4 inches. Put 1 screw in, and I'll do 1 on the other side. Now, before I put that third one on, I need to attach the armrest up to that second one. So I'm actually going to put a screw in up from the bottom of this armrest, attaching into the side of this 2x4 here. Once that's in, then we can get our third backrest piece on here. I always try to put the ugly stuff to the back. Now the gap for this, I want to make it consistent, so I also want 3 1/4 as well. Try to make sure the ends are flush. So I got 3 1/4, 3 1/4. Then put 2 more screws in each board. You want to make sure that these screws are all follow a line. If you need a mark and measure, I would do that. If you don't think you can eyeball it. Having your screws in a nice neat row makes your product look much more high quality rather than being crooked. All right, it's actually looking like a bench now. So the last thing that we need to do is add the bottom seat boards in. So your 6 50-inch pieces are what is going to go here. Now, since this is rough construction lumber, the edges, they're not perfect. So even when you butt them up to each other, there's still a little bit of gap there, which you need some kind of a gap, because if these are going to be outside in the rain, just in case they were to get rain on them, you wouldn't want that to sit on the wood. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that backboard lined up on the back there. I'm gonna make sure the ends of the boards are flush and even. Not very often you can sit down and work at the same time. Now I'm going to put the one more thin coat of the wood sealer on there to help protect it, and then we will be all done. If you'd like the blueprints for this bench, check the description below. I will have all the links in there.